I'm here with Richard Nicholson and Cheryl Richards, who are employability coaches who work with us on some of our programmes in Wakefield and over in Flintshire in Wales. So a little bit of background to HFT and our involvement with Project Search. We first started working with the programme in 2013 in Bradford, at a programme based at Bradford Teaching Hospitals. And our role within the partnership is as a supported employment provider. So as I said previously, when Martin's here, he'll talk a bit more about the different partners that are involved in a DFM Project Search programme and how those interplay with each other. At the moment, we have 84 interns that are enrolled with us this academic year. So we're going to start off by talking a bit about our role overall, and I'm going to hand over to Richard, who will explain that process for you.
Hi, thanks, Bryony. Could we go on to the next slide? I'm not sure who I'm asking for this. It's as Bryony says, we're a little bit out of sync now that we're jumping straight into the supported employment side of it. Could we go on to the next slide again? Okay, so this is the programme here. Very quickly, we'll go through what we provide from the supported employment point of view. A lot of what we're doing is looking at the practical one-to-one support in the rotations, in the internships, in the work experience placements that the young people are on. So this involves supporting them in the role when they're starting through their induction and training, so that we understand that the role that they're working on, we help make sure that they understand, and we can provide ongoing training while the other members of that department can be looking at something else as well. Rather than putting such a drain on the department, we lift on that. We do a lot of CV writing and job searching and personal statement writing, making sure that the young people have got the best paperwork available and that they understand very much what it is that they want to include and what they want to talk about when we're preparing for interviews and so on. A part of this is looking at job analysis, which looks a lot of the time we'll go through a person spec of a position, and we'll look at the role profile, and we'll traffic lights, we'll color code what is involved in the job and how that meets the kind of the learner's abilities and kind of interests at the minute, and what they might be able to work towards. So what we'll often do is find a job that's got quite a lot of green and a bit of yellow, and then we can put additional support and training into to lift those yellows up to being green as well. One of the tools that we do to support this is called the vocational profile. This breaks down a very wide range of pieces of information that we need to know for the learners, what their interests are, what their desires are as well. We find out not just what the rotations, what the work experience we have available is, but we look at what the young people want to be doing. Particularly with new programs, it's often quite difficult to be able to get the exact position that people are wanting when they're looking at work experience. But once we're finished with that and we're looking towards the employment side, we've got a lot more flexibility in terms of what we can be looking for. The final thing we look at is reasonable adjustments, which are helping the organisation, helping the department, helping the employer meet the needs of the young person, so that they have, sometimes this could be as simple as having a screen colour, a coloured screen filter, sorry. It could be related to seating, it could be related to moving the office space around. A lot of this will be either free or cheap as far as we can make it. We can often sometimes get some of the costs involved in this covered by access to work, depending on what needs to be done. There may be an employer contribution to this as well, although it does depend on the size of the organisation, the level of the reasonable adjustments and so on. But as far as possible, we try to find the cheapest alternatives to that. Could we go on to the next slide, please? I think it's Rebecca. That's wonderful, thank you. So in terms of follow-on support, again, one-to-one on the job support. This involves helping people through inductions and training, where we provide additional hands and specialised training support for the young person in work that the department may not be able to provide. We provide support for both the graduate and the employer. I think it's very important to emphasise for our supported employment that we're not just looking at supporting the young people, but we're also supporting the employer in better meeting the needs and helping the graduate, the client, whatever we want to be calling them, meet the needs of the employer. At the end of the day, we're not looking at special handouts, we're not looking at special treatment. The whole focus of what we're looking at is helping people into competitive work. Somebody, I can't remember quite who it was, I'm afraid, mentioned earlier, it's about, I think it was Hugh who said it, but I'm not 100% sure. It's about identifying issues early on and resolving them so that they don't grow and become more challenging. Reasonable adjustments, as we mentioned, making sure that the employer can meet the needs of the young person as well as the other way around. Going into engaging employers, this is more outreach, this is finding new alternative employment possibilities, but it also links in with providing specialist training, specialist support for different employers who we might not have any direct contact with. We provide mentor training, or we provide kind of employer training on how to support people with disabilities, how we can help people's recruitment program better deal with these issues, and how we can support whole attitudes across all industries, but particularly in the industries that we're focusing in our local areas. The final thing to look at is the Job Club. The Job Club is something that we often start with some of the candidates while they're still on programme with Project Search, but it comes more into play towards the end of the year, and certainly for people who haven't quite found employment. This is continuing to find work, to search for opportunities, to analyse and support them in terms of the application process and the interview process. And it can also involve looking at upskilling, looking at identifying areas that they might need additional support in, and helping to find some training for meeting these needs, and to help people find the best choices and the best opportunities for their job searches. Can we go on to the next slide, please? And I think this is over now to Cheryl. Oh no, sorry, this is Job Club. So a little bit more detail in terms of Job Club. It's the graduates and the interns, as we mentioned. We try to do this weekly, in person as often as possible. With the current situation of the last 2 years, obviously you can imagine that's not always been possible. One of the key things in terms of this weekly support is it helps with the well-being, helps with the overall approach that we have when we're dealing with the applicants, the job applicants that we're looking at. It's not just a question of can we get you into work, but it gives us a bit of a checkup to see how things are going, anything that you need to be talking about, anything you want to get off your chest. We've talked a little bit about CVs and upskilling, application support, and also interview support. This includes taking people to interviews as well, and in some cases we often sit at the back of the room to give people moral support while they're in the interview processes. And I think that is now me. If we go on to the next slide, I'll think that's over to Cheryl.
Hi. Yep, so next slide, please. Okay, so we provide support from the outset, so with all induction and training, attending those alongside the person so that we can ensure their understanding and breaking down the information where necessary. We'll make sure that the person settles into their workplace well, knows their way around, where the facilities are. If, for example, if it's an office environment, we might do a seating plan so they know who sits where and the names of key people. We'll look at all aspects of health and safety and assist with risk assessments and personal evacuation plans, suggesting additional control measures where necessary. We'll train all of the tasks and break them down into easy to follow steps to ensure that the person learns the job in a systematic way and follows the company's procedures and processes. And another really important part of what we do is making sure that the person is fully immersed in their work site so that they build good relationships with their co-workers, they're included in social activities that may take place. Next slide, please. Okay, yeah, and it's really important to note that we don't ever just disappear. We provide ongoing, reliable support for as long as the employee and the employer want it and need it. We can assist with any further training, whether that's retraining a task or annual mandatory training. We can provide support during appraisals and one-to-one meetings. We can respond quickly to assist and provide support and guidance to resolve any issues that may arise. And we also look at things like interpersonal skills, making sure people have appropriate interactions with others, they've got a good work ethic, they're motivated and they're able to use their initiative and are a good team player. We support the person if any workplace changes occur, so if the office is redesigned or relocated or staff changes, that can be quite unsettling for people. So, you know, we support people through that. And we also encourage progression. We don't want people to stay stagnant in their role. So if they're keen to move on in their career, we'll look at ways of upskilling them and making sure that they've got the skills and knowledge that they need to enable them to do that. And Access to Work can fund any ongoing employability coach support required for the person to maintain their role. Next slide, please.
Cheryl,
Sorry.
just a couple more minutes for the HF team.
Okay, I'll talk quickly. Okay, so the support for the employer, regular reliable contact. If you call us, we'll always respond quickly. We spend a lot of time getting to know the people that we support, so we're able to give a lot of advice and guidance about what works well for them. You know, if somebody prefers written lists, that type of thing. We'll always work with the employer to make sure that the person is meeting company standards and deadlines that are set, and we can put processes in place to assist with those. And we also offer awareness sessions to the workforce about learning disabilities and autism. If you go on to the next slide, I think Richard has covered. If you go on to the next slide. So engaging employers.
Cheryl, your sound has disappeared a little bit. If you're okay, I'll take over from you here. Just around engaging employers, we've been working on some disability awareness sessions and employer engagement workshops in the areas that we're working with. And we also have some of our project search interns in Wales who've developed a specific neurodiversity training package to deliver to different workplaces. We've looked at reverse job fairs, so rather than a group of people attending a jobs fair that's externally, we've been holding some ourselves to invite potential employers to come along and to meet the young people that we're working with. We also have some business advisory committees in some of the areas that we're working in, which is made up of different employers who can assist and provide support to our interns from a variety of different things, including mock interviews, all the way through to employment as well. If you could move on to the next slide, please, that would be really helpful. Thank you. So we've already talked about the impact of paid employment and why this is so important, so I'm not going to recap on that one. But we do know that this is a really crucial and life-changing thing for the people that we're working with. We see this as ourselves as a supported employment provider, but do hear it directly from interns, graduates and parents and carers that we support as well. I'm aware we're running short on time, so I'm just going to mention a couple of key points before we finish. I think one of the big challenges which Hugh touched on earlier today is around funding for follow-on provision that we've been discussing. Our programmes are funded through education, funding through education and through Access to Work funding, but there is a gap around funding for the provision for follow-on support, particularly around job searching and job club provision, which Richard was talking about earlier, which isn't routinely funded. This is something that as a supported employment provider, I'm really keen for us to raise awareness of that. Without more consistent and dedicated funding for this provision, there is a risk that the opportunities, the training and experience that a supported internship like DFM Project Search Programme can offer could be lost. Another point just to sort of touch on as to why this post-programme support is really important. Hugh mentioned before around the number of people that have transitioned into work and how many of those have retained their paid employment. So we have 91% of our graduates who've moved into employment have retained their work once they've found that for a minimum of a 6-month period, and 78% of those have maintained work for a longer period of time following that. So it is really crucial. It does work. We see the figures of people moving through into paid employment, and each one of those individuals has their own story to tell about how they've transitioned through that process, and we need to make sure that that funding is sustainable and available to keep that support available. I'll end there. Sorry for the slightly rushed ending.
Bryony, why don't we just look through the 3 slides remaining just slowly so that people can read them before we move on to introducing Martin, because I appreciate it's so difficult, isn't it, to time things, but I think you've given a really good overview of and actually stepped in as very kindly, and we'll lead on now to the next slide, which is obviously around the Employment Support Service of HFT. That's interesting. Funding, really useful that you've included that slide. Thank you. And your last slide. And these will be shared with everybody at the conference. If you could click through that one, Rebecca.
It's not working, but it will be on the slides we send out.
OK. All right. So thank you so much to Bryony, Cheryl and Richard for that presentation. I'm going to introduce Martin again, but Martin, because of the sort of slight step change there, it'd be great if you could just make sure you give that overview as to how these programmes fit together for some people on the call who may not be completely, you know, working and embedded in supported employment themselves, but here to kind of understand the pathways. Thanks, Martin.
No problem at all. First of all, I'll start with an apology for having to dash off to answer the door to the SWAB team, and thank you to HFT for showing what great support employment providers can do in being responsive, supportive and quick thinking. Thank you. OK, so Project Search, we know Hugh's already covered that, and less than 6%. We also know work's good for you. I draw your attention to the bar chart on the right hand side there. The life expectancy for somebody with a mild or moderate learning disability being 63 years of age against the national average of 82 for a man and 85 for a woman. So we know that poor job outcomes leads to poor life outcomes. And so at Project Search, we are really keen to support young people into paid employment, to support them to, like Barry said before, live gloriously ordinary lives. And for context, we're a national charity. We're a business-led transition to employment model for young adults with learning disabilities, or who have autistic spectrum condition. We are an evidence-based model that delivers results, and we are very high aiming, and we only work with committed partners. One of the briefs I've got is to explain what works for best outcomes, and I'll ensure we embed that in this presentation. Just to tell you what we do, apologies if HFT have done this already. We're a one-year programme. We work with young adults who are aged 16 to 25, we've got an education health care plan, variety of learning disabilities and autistic spectrum conditions. It was designed in Cincinnati Children's Hospital in 1996, and it's based on how you train a nurse. You do 3 rotations, you learn on the job. We have our interns in the host employers 5 days a week, full time, because we recognise that if you're in the host employer, you have more time to learn and you have more time to impress that employer into giving you a job and changing their kind of perception. We also work in large scale, 8 to 12 interns per site, because that enables us to change the cultures of the employers that we work with. The outcome of employment we're looking for, we want financial independence for our interns, so we're looking for over 16 hours per week of work. We want it to be integrated and we want it to be paid at the prevailing wage. Across our sites, our outcomes are 60% of finishers into 16 hours and above, and overall 70% into some form of paid work. To give you an idea of how it's delivered, it's all about effective partnership working. Everybody talks about it. Sometimes it can be quite difficult to do because it requires honest and open conversations, but that's how you get good outcomes. If you miss one of these partners out of a programme, it doesn't work. So education, provide the young people, provide a full-time tutor on site, local authority, oversight of the education, health and care plan scenarios, funding, family, incredibly important. We need support from families to help their young person into work and to support them to do that. Project Search, we bring model, continuous improvement, scale, support an employment agency such as HFT. Everyone's already spoken about how important it is to have on-the-job support. Also, follow-on support is incredibly important. For me personally, The concern is that if somebody's been going through their education career and they're seeing their mainstream peers going off to university, getting jobs, and they're worrying about that, they go through an internship and they get a job and they're so happy, and then they lose it, that's even further to fall for somebody's mental health. So we think supported employment agencies are absolutely key to this. Support from Department for Work and Pensions, better off in work calculations, and access to work. How it looks, the 3 rotations, we have something called an employment planning meeting, which is the little X's on the timelines. They're absolutely crucial. This really speaks to a lot of the stuff that PFA are really interested in. It's person-centred. The intern leads the meeting. It's chaired by the intern. They give a presentation. They talk about what they've learned, what they want to learn, and what job they want. And within that meeting, there's a circle of support around the intern, which is made up of job coach, tutor, the placement manager and mentor from the host employer, and family members. And it's everybody's role there to work out how they can open up their networks or what actions they can take away to help that intern get the job that they want. So it's really, really important that we do that. That's another key factor in getting great outcomes. A typical day, when you're doing your 5 days a week in your host employer, you're learning competitive marketable skills. You're learning kind of the unwritten rules of the workplace. When can you go and speak to the manager? If the door's shut, do you go in or not? You rotate each term, and it's not about doing 3 wildly different rotations. What we're expecting is that our interns have an idea of the type of environment that they want to work in, not the job. That's too difficult. I don't think anyone can answer what job they want. But people know whether they want to work indoors or outdoors, on a computer or not, and we can use that to get the right opportunity. And we're looking to increase the amount of skills that people learn on each rotation, and to give people an opportunity to learn those transferable skills so they're really, really job ready at the end of it. Continual feedback and assessment through the employment planning meetings. The way the day's structured, you're looking 9 till 10 in your base room in the host employer, which is like a classroom. You do your maths, English, employability qual. 10 till 3 out on your rotation, and so you have lunch with your teammates. So you learn all those social skills, all those soft skills, and then 3 to 3:30 back in the base room to recap on your day. If there's been any issues, they can be ironed out so the intern doesn't go home not being able to sleep because they're so stressed. I will be talking really fast because I'm appreciative of time. Case studies, I've got 3 in there. I will probably just show you one of them, but you'll be able to read them in the slide.
Talk slowly, Martin, and take us through one story. I think that would be a really valuable part of your presentation. Thanks. Okay,
right. Let's choose Bobby, right, because it's got the least text in it. You can see by Bobby's smile, he's happy in his work. I would imagine you could guess he works for the NHS. This is a quote from his mum. I won't read it out to you. Well, we'll read it out to you. Mum says, "I'm so proud of him because Bobby's journey hasn't been the easiest, but he's always had a clear idea of what he wanted, and that was to get a job and go to work. Without Project Search and the support he got along the way, he wouldn't be where he is today. All he's ever wanted is to work for the NHS, and now it's all come true for him." And there he is. I think you can agree he enjoys his job. That's what we're about. Bobby's life, you know, from poor outcomes, hopefully he's on the journey to that gloriously ordinary life, which is just fantastic. In terms of scale for Project Search, to give you an idea, we've got 80 sites across the country. So if we said there was an average of 10 on each site, that's 800 young people. So we're working at scale. We've got an ambition to get 10,000 young people with SEND into paid employment in the next 10 years, which seems like quite a large number, but it's not really, because by September of this year, we'll have 120 sites. So we're growing really, really quickly. But we're all about sticking to the model and getting the best possible outcomes. Benefits to employers, better staff reliability. There's all sorts of data out there about people with learning disabilities or autism being more reliable. Reduced sickness, lower turnover, increased customer loyalty because you seem to be, corporate social responsibility and all that. Improved morale at work. We're opening up a new site at Queen's Medical Centre in Nottingham. They've got an existing site at His City Hospital. So this is University Hospitals Nottingham. Their lead HR person said that opening up a new Project Search site for his staff that have been through to be crude, hell and back through the pandemic, would be the best thing they could probably do to raise morale, because it makes them all feel good. They really love doing it. So it's just a wonderful thing to do. Benefits that we had seen as well is increased staff disability disclosure. Existing employees realise that an employer is inclusive and it's safe to disclose. Increased team cohesion and reduced recruitment costs. At the moment, it appears to be a kind of a difficult time to recruit, and we're actually getting employers approaching us asking for support for building new talent pathways into their businesses. Support and employment agencies are absolutely key to it, and the experience and genius that they can bring to get the young people into work, to support the employer and to support the people to stay in work is absolutely off the chart. So they can offer, and the guys will have touched on this, on-site job coaching, matching, reasonable adjustments, training and input into strategy. Once you've got a really effective partnership working, the spin-offs from it in terms of a supported employment agency being able to help a host business create and kind of write a proper inclusive recruitment strategy is just awesome. This is about why you should have a supported employment agency working with you. There's all sorts of stuff about identifying tasks, systematic instruction, talking to the brief that we've got about what works best for best outcomes. I'm going to stop sharing there. What you want is well-trained job coaches. You want informed and inspired families and young people, and you want education providers and local authorities that want the best for the young people. And I think all those things are out there. It's just a matter of joining it all up and working together. Thank you.
So I'd like to move through now to welcoming Alice and Jason, who are joining us from Project Choice. And I know Joe's on the call as well from Project Choice, who was involved in our sort of planning for this conference event. So it's great that you're with us, Joe. Alice, are you okay with your slides? I'm sorry, I can't remember if Rebecca's sharing them. You are.
I've got my slides. That's all good. Is Jason, are you there? I know you're there.
Oh, I am here.
Oh, can you turn on your camera as well for me?
My camera is on. Hello?
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So my name, can everyone see my slides? Is it up?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so my name's Alice Nicholas. I'm the Employer Engagement Officer for Project Choice. And Jason, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I am Jason Rountree. I am the admin assistant for Project Choice.
Awesome. So yeah, Jason, you start off.
So Project Choice is a supported internship. It allows people with autism to be able to transition into work, and we provide a lot of support in them doing so. So it's a very hands-on and tailored to the individual's needs. Our education is provided by, we are an independent education provider, which means that we offer functional skills if they need to advance their functional skills, such as English and maths. We also provide employability skills as well as life skills in-house by the team itself, by the Project Choice team. And so throughout the project, we give the interns a year, an academic year, in order to essentially gain skills within a work environment, within placements, as well as to learn through the education that we provide them. And we are funded by the local authorities as well as the Department of Work, and we have a lot of cooperation, and we have very close ties with the NHS because we are HE, Health Education England, and we're having a merger soon, so I don't know how closer we could get. And thank you. And Alice?
So just on top of what Jason said, so we're part of, we're funded by the Education Skills and Funding Agency, so we are our own college, but we actually have 3 stages to the way that we support interns. So, or people with a learning disability, difficulty, or autism, or autism. So at stage one of our support is that we actually have work experience leads that go into schools and then they organise placements for students that are already in school. So it's almost like they can have work experience without having to sign on to an internship program. So they do 1/2 day of placement per week for a 6-week program. And our work experience leads work with a bunch of different schools in their local areas. And we have 3 work experience leads across England. Our second stage is our supported internship program, which again is the 16 to 24 year age, which is the same as Project Search. So they do a 1 day in education. So like Jason said, we have our independent education provider. So we provide 1 day of education and then they do 4 days of placement. And the same as we do 3 different placements across the academic year. So one thing about our supported internship is that we have each cohort of our students and learners, they have a coordinator and an area manager. And what we've found is that works really well because they're educated by their area manager and that staff, but they're also supported by them in their work placements. And we find that really helps with those students because they've gone through education in such a close environment with such close staff that as they're transitioning into an internship, having those same staff with them has been really helpful for their transitioning out of school. And the final stage that we do is we have staff that support students that have left the program for up to 5 years. So we have students that come back that we help with apprenticeship applications or job interviews or anything like that that they might need help with. So our internship program is our largest support that we provide, but we also do that work experience element prior to the internship and also the support after, because we did see that as a need. Jason, do you want to explain this one?
I will. So our college is where we provide education to the students. As Alice described, we have 1 day of education and we teach both functional skills and employability and life skills. The employability and life skills are provided by the actual team themselves, so the coordinators and the managers who, they get placements, they do the placement checks, they speak with the students and talk with the students to find out what they want in life, what they want from their placements, how they're feeling, how they're getting on. And so to have that extra personal interaction allows the coordinators and managers to understand what their students need to a higher degree. And I think it inspires the students to be more proactive, engage a lot more in education and kind of like keep the information as well. And functional skills is provided by a maths and English teacher who provides all the functional skills for the region. And so it's not provided by like local centres or anything. And I think, and it's in a classroom setting, which is very helpful for the students and for their social needs and such like that. And I feel like it's a very useful and very practical way to do it. And that's about it. Alice?
So in terms of the way that we provide the support, so with the employers, so going to the employers, the area managers, so it's all done by the same staff, so they organise all the placements, they do all the placement support. And that's one thing I think that has really helped is that the students, they have that education day, and then they have that same staff person that goes to their employer and checks on how they're going and what they're doing and how they're going in their placements. But our Project Choice Impact, so in last academic year, our students did each 570 hours of placements, and we have a 50% entered into paid employment, apprenticeships or volunteering roles, and then we had another 40% go on to further education. So I'm going to pass over to Jason to talk about the interns and pathways to adulthood.
Okay, thank you, Alice. So I don't know if you could tell, but I used to be on this course as well. I went on the course back in 2018, and so I was one of the first group in the Stockton area to do it. And it was and now that I work on the course as well, I've seen it from both sides, and I think it's very interesting to have like the kind of like knowledge of how both sides function, because when a lot of students leave, you know, their education, when they leave college or whatever employability programs that they've been on, they come to the course and they have a lot of, you know, a lot of opinions. They have a lot of maybe anxiety or mental health or even just apathy from essentially being, you know, within NEET status for a year or two or several years even for some people. And it really affects the desire of the student to want to actually engage in the project. And I feel like now that I'm on the course and I've been working with Project Choice for a few years now, I can see that we really do help people on a personal level as well as finding them employment. So we ask the students what placements they want to go on, a lot like Project Search does, where we offer free possible placements throughout the year. But they choose what placements they want to go on. They make a list, they detail their interests. So it's not necessarily saying, I want to be this, but if they do have a job in mind, that's perfect. But it's also about, do they like working with people? Are they IT literate? Can they, are they interested in catering? Are they interested in animals? And then we go and we canvass the local area and like, you know, local businesses, if they would be interested in taking on a student. We've had dog groomers, we've had even a joinery personal business interested. We canvass a lot of people and we get a lot of positive feedback, and people are very happy to take on placements. And so it gives a lot more choice and variety than just hospital placements. But we work very closely with the hospitals as well. And as the students go through the year, the first placement, they learn if they can manage in a workplace. So we provide mentorship training to one of the staff members so that they know what to do and like how to interact with the students and such. So we provide personal training there. And we also, if the student needs it, provide a job coach. Maybe they're anxious, maybe they're a little bit scared to enter the workplace by themselves. Maybe they need travel training. We provide that. But allowing the students to make mistakes, as in they're not happy with their placement. Maybe they want to, such as I did, go into accountancy. And then a few months in, you realize, never again, no more accountancy, never again. And to be able to have you have a job in your mind that you think you'd want to do, and then having the opportunity to experience that and realize it's something you don't want to do, that can save a lot of time and effort rather than just applying to a job and then you get in the job and then you're unhappy with the job. And I think that's very important as well, to provide that kind of flexibility to provide that. And we provide the students a lot of social aspects as well. Like in the classroom environment, we have social outings sometimes as well, and the students become friends with each other, and that helps with a lot of mental health issues as well. Often these students have either been coddled by parents, so their independence is stunted, or they are just lonely and they feel anxious when they're around people. And the year over the course can do a lot more than just teach work skills. And I think that's very vital. And like I said, with independent living, you'll be surprised how many students come on and they don't know how to use a bus. And even if you look it up, you'll be surprised, like, it doesn't explain everything about a bus. If you look it up, how to use a bus, they don't tell you to thumbs up at the stop. The amount of times the bus just goes past you. But independent living, a lot of students don't know how to apply for universal credit and social benefits and such that they're applicable for. And so we go through with the students on how to apply for these things, which is very important. And again, with the social development as well, to have to be treated as an adult in a workplace environment also makes people act like adults. They kind of fill the boots of what's expected of them a lot of the time, and as you remove the job coaches, as they're more comfortable in their environment, they live up to expectation and they get better and better. And when it comes to the interview process, they'll get the experiences that they learn within the job role, and they'll know what to say. Oh, give us a description of when you've been in a team. And then they'll say, oh, when I was in catering, I used to help clear up the dishes and work with the team in order to go through and sterilize and wash dishes and plates and sort them in the racks and such in tandem with the team, and etc. And you'll be surprised how many people don't have proper interview skills. And so we teach them that as well. And that's part of the employability course provided in education. And there's so many nuances that just can't be explained. There's so many nuances. Am I running over time by any chance?
So can I ask you a question, Jason? Can you explain what you were like before you started in projects?
I was so angsty teenager, very apathetic, because when you leave college, the expectation is either you immediately find a job, you immediately get an apprenticeship, or you immediately go into university. And if you don't want to do them, and for a lot of people, university isn't even an option, then you become jaded and you're like, I'm failing. I've not got a job. I'm failing in life. And we see a lot of these people, especially people with high functioning autism. They feel like they've failed. The moment they haven't gotten a job, they've failed. And so they come in and they're moody, they're angsty, they reject authority. They hate the education providers. They won't turn up, they'll sleep, or they'll have all sorts of issues. And I was a lot like that. I was angsty. I was like, oh, I don't want to come here. You can't make me come here. But then once you're pushed into going to placement, once you've more confident about what you're doing, and once you actually give in like responsibility, then you feel that responsibility and you become better as a person. And I see that in the students all the time as well, not just in myself. The amount of students who we've given like positive help and who've gotten jobs. Like if someone gets a job, they're like, oh, okay, cool, I've got a job. When one of our students gets a job, or even an apprenticeship, or even or anything, they're ecstatic. The joy is palpable, because they're like, yes, I've succeeded. My family will be proud of me. And it's a very good sight to see.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason.
Okay, thank you, Alice.
That's all right. Thanks for your story, and thanks for giving us an overview of your work. It's really good to hear. So in terms of I'm just going to carry on. Everyone can have questions for Jason at the end, because I'm assuming there's going to be some. But in terms of our employee engagement, we not only work with NHS trusts, we also work with third sector and private businesses. So in this academic year alone, nationwide Project Choice, we currently work with 14 different NHS trusts across England, and we currently work with 55 different third sector and private businesses in total. So like other internship programs, we work with employers, we have mentor training, we train mentors to work with our students, to work with people like Jason. And that's also part of why we do this kind of work, because it's, again, not only about giving employment opportunities, but it's also about spreading inclusive workplace environments and how to enable local businesses to be more inclusive. So if this year we're working with 55 different private businesses, I can't imagine how many we're working with next year, and how many more staff in businesses we will be supporting to transform and kind of help them to be more inclusive and feel more confident to take on a person with a learning disability, difficulty, and/or autism. Our common reasons that we get, I just want to put this in because I think it's really interesting. Our common reasons we get for people wanting to or not wanting to be an employer with our placement students. So the reasons why they do want to be a part of the program is it gives back to the community, the level of support that we provide. So we get job coaches to go in for our students if it's required, but we also do fortnightly follow-ups for our students and reviews. Our staff are there all the time. And when we've spoken, I've done a more review with all our employers for feedback, and that's one of the things that they really appreciate is just the amount of support that we provide for the employers. Our actual community do want to support young people and send learners. That's been a really big feedback. We don't cost anything, and also that the organisations, with what we found, that organisations and businesses are more receptive if they know someone with a disability. So they're like, oh yes, we'll definitely take on a student. And then the reasons why they don't want to join are things like staffing and time, health and safety, and like insurance concerns. COVID is a really big reason for a lot of our NHS placements this past year and a bit. Policy and systems are not in place to take on a student is a big one, and as well as they've had a previous bad experience. So that's one of our biggest barriers is when we go to a business and they're like, oh, we had an intern, it didn't turn out very well. And that's why we provide the level of support that we do, because we really want to ensure that if we're going to set people up to we want to set people up to succeed and not have a bad experience, both for the employer and the student.
Alice?
Yeah, I've only got one last slide. It's all good. So what works is in our approach, I think Jason touched on at the beginning, we're very person-centered. We tailor our support. It's about what the student is motivated and interested in doing. And again, like Jason made the point, giving people the opportunity to explore choice and in particular to make mistakes. So if they, again, Jason, want to be an accountant and realize it's the worst thing ever and they never want to do it again, that's also what this is about. And again, that's what the work experience part is about for people still in school, so they can do that before they even get out into an internship program. The local business engagement is very important. That's where a lot of our placements come from, are those very, very local businesses. The level of support we provide is very high, and also it's really reflective of having that core group of people that know the student really well and are traveling through them on that journey has really helped with the transition from school to the internship. The awareness and upskilling we do with all of our employers, providing disability awareness, doing the mentor training, that's really important. And then the education and experience that our staff have, our students get, the employers get. I think it's something that is very important with the whole process, because you've got to support everyone through the whole process for it to work well. And I'm very, very glad that Jason was able to do this presentation with me today with so many people. So well done to Jason. And that he is not still wearing his hoodie over his head and not talking very much. So thank you, Jason, for being part of the presentation today. But yeah, that's us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Alice. And thank you very much, Jason. It's great to have that kind of personal view. I love the way that as soon as you're talking, the language is so much more sort of real in terms of some of the work we currently do with young people with all sorts of additional needs around motivation. And you use the word apathy, you know, that really difficult place that many people, and you referred to mental health, which I think is so important, in particular now when so many young people have been kind of inactive and faced a sort of inertia, which, you know, before anything, we've got to tackle that. So I was very grateful for your input today, Jason, in particular. We've got a couple of minutes for immediate questions to Jason if people would like to chip in at this point. Otherwise, we'll move on. Rabina, you've got a question for. Is your question for anyone in particular, Rabina?
Jason, I'm really inspired. I can see my child in you. That's all I can say.
Thank you.
He's done very well. Well done, Jason.
Yeah, really fantastic. Any other questions or thoughts before we move into looking at all our questions? Pamela, a question there.
Question for Jason. It was really interesting presentation. Thank you, Jason. Very inspirational. What was the one biggest thing about the programme that made a difference for you, do you think? The most important thing?
I think it was so I have done employability programs before. I did one in college, but it felt like it was ramshackle. The placements were inside the college, and there was no room for placements inside the college. If I'm being honest, it was not the right environment for it, and I felt like the teacher of the employment course didn't even want to teach it. It was essentially forced to. He was just a regular member of staff, and then they decided to open this course up, and then he just had to take the brunt. And so when I was in Project Choice and I actually got to experience a real work environment where I was needed, it gave me a lot more confidence, and I felt less like I was being railroaded through these employability courses that were just CV generators that gave you no actual applicable skills and nothing to even use in an interview.
Lovely. Thank you. So about authenticity then, that's brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason.